Chong is Associate Professor of Sociology, of course, at NUS, but also the Vice Dean in charge of research at our faculty. Chong's interests are in many fields, but focusing on the political economy of cities, migration, higher education, youth, and leisure. And today he wants to talk a bit more about the wild, the unruly side, and the wild and unruly landscapes of the creative economy in Singapore. The title of his talk is Creativity at the Margins, Place and Production in Singapore. Chong.
You know, I feel kind of guilty making you stay on a Friday afternoon. And so I'll make it quick. I am actually thankful to Maria and to John because I think they've made my job much simpler. I think from Maria, we got the idea that science and arts, the people who are in science and arts think very differently. And we see that in the art that they draw. From John, we get to understand about places and how places come to promote, create, enhance, encourage creativity for scientists. And so here I am, I'm talking about the other half, I'm talking about the arts. I'm talking about where do artists actually hang out. And you know, I mean, if scientists hang out in universities, and if universities can promote particular conditions that enhance science creativity, the question is, where do the artists hang out such that they become creative? And so this is my story. Now, I don't research on creativity, not like Maria. You know, my obsession is with place. I'm an urban sociologist. Brenda seems to think that I'm a geographer. I don't mind that, but I'm a sociologist. And so to talk about, to actually convince you of this story, I need to say something about work styles. You know, so just as Maria talked about the way the mind thinks in arts and science, I need to talk about how in certain fields of the creative economy, they work in certain ways. And so I guess, you know, these are some of the ways in which different people in the literature talk about arts, talk about musicians, talk about poets, talk about writers. You know, this idea of self-determined artistic labor, where money is not, we talked about it earlier, that there's no money, but you have a lot of fun and you have a lot of satisfaction. There's no money, but, and this idea of a non-economic commitment to a wider community. Drake talks about individualized creativity. So you don't work as teams, like in science. Very much the work is solo. And this idea of self-organized projects, again, you don't work under one roof, but you work through networks of collaborators which reinforce the kinds of things you do. And so, if you think about creativity, and if you think about this kind of work styles, then there is a strand in this creative economy where creativity is tied to lifestyle, all right? And lifestyle can be tied to places. So this is the argument that I'm making, that the creative economy, the new economy, have many strands. And this particular strand, which involves self-determined labor, individualized creativity, self-organized projects, is somehow tied to lifestyle, and this lifestyle is tied to place, because certain places allow for a certain kind of diversity. If there is a certain density of these people, then there is a certain like-mindedness and a certain co-mingling. And so this is the story. It is a story about Singapore and where artists hang out. And so I leave this out there because I think you know the art story quite well. I want to talk about particular neighborhoods. I want to talk in particular about Little India in Geylang. I want to talk about the shop house, and I want to talk about how the shop houses end up here as a remnant, but I don't have time. Okay, I want to talk about shop houses as places to live and work, and so if you've been here in Singapore for some time, you know that the ground floor. This is actually a brothel. But if you live here for some time, you know that the ground floor is for work and the upstairs is for living. Shop houses and flexibility. I have a longer story which I don't want to talk about in the interest of time. But I do want to compare Chinatown versus Little India. Now, if you look at Chinatown and if you are familiar with this area, you would know that this area is by now pretty gentrified. So you've got the clan associations, but you've also got poultry films. I went to a place somewhere near here where the whole building that used to be a brothel has been taken over by a very big ad company. And so this place is gentrified. You've got very stylish vegetarian restaurants. You've got Art Deco buildings that have been converted into hotels. You've got nice temples, and you've got harbor in town. So it's gentrified. But in contrast, if you look at Little India, you've got a more I guess PC said it's wild and unruly. So I've interviewed some new economy companies here and asked them, what's the deal? Why do they locate there? But to tell you the story, I must first show you a number of things. I want to show you Mustafa. It's a 24-hour department store, but I want to introduce this guy who's staring out in the window. And actually, I'll fill in the rest of the story later. I want to show you this place where the advertisement says, why stay in a crowded inn? Only 6 persons to a room. It's a great deal. $16 a night. Do you think the next workshop we host, we can put this our guest there? Maybe yes, maybe no. But this is also Dunlop Street, which is where some of the companies I interviewed were located. It is a changing phase because this part is where a lot of the foreign workers hang out, but at the other end, which is quieter, you see signs of gentrification occurring, okay? And, I wanted to explain why Desker Road is important. As you know, the red light area, tons of people on the weekends, okay? And so here's the story. The story is really about why new media firms, why artists and so on hang out there. It's not a completely convincing story because I don't think we have the density. I don't think we have the density to talk about an art district or a new economy kind of district the way you can do it in other cities. But it's about, these are the kinds of conditions that seem to favor the arts type. Okay, new media startup and cost. The reason why they hang out in Little India and Geylang and not in Chinatown is because these are new companies, and the most important thing is the cost of land. Okay, Chinatown is already too expensive. And so if you want a place to experiment, there's really a few places left. And Little India and Geylang are fantastic, all right, because the foreign workers and the brothels keep the costs down. That's why the brothels are very important. New media and centrality, I think the story is very well known. You need to meet all kinds of clients, and so being in the city is important. Geylang is the same, all right? New media and irregular hours. Some of the companies that I talk to talk about filming schedules that are very intense. They do filming round the clock, and places like Mustafa actually allows them to buy batteries, cartridge, video kinds of stuff, you know, at odd hours, and they could have, you know, meals at different times of the day. New media and play, and new media and creativity, or arts and creativity and the place, I think is something that is interesting, but I don't think I could do it justice. But the idea here is that it's not the university, it's places that are diverse, it's places that create, I think what Su Ping called the provocation, you know, the stimulus, that gives artists, writers, ideas, you know, that they could work with. I think Geylang and Little India, compared to other places, the university included, a lot more complex in terms of stimulus. Day and night differences. Different people who end up there, who live there, who pass through there, are all very important. If you talk to people in this particular strand, they would tell you that the ideas that they get come from very different places. And to some extent, where they live and play, and the kinds of lifestyles they are involved in, matters in the creative process. Okay, so this, I think, is where I end. I end with the same pessimism that John has. Because if NUS cannot produce or cannot mimic the kinds of conditions, NUS and, or rather Singapore and Korea cannot mimic the kinds of conditions that were present in Stanford, I wonder, you know, with these two places that are in danger of being redeveloped, can it actually be an ecosystem that may actually attract the younger artists, the musicians, and the new media startup companies that somehow, for the time being, actually find refuge and find stimulus in these places. Thank you.